Today's Friday, July 21st, 2023, and I'm going to read 1 Kings chapter 10. And just a disclaimer, I'm going to keep trying to make these daily videos. I like having daily videos and reading one chapter, at least one chapter of the Bible every day. It's just a good habit to get into, and when I stop doing these videos, it's way too easy to just go multiple days without staying in the Word. There's always stuff to learn, and it's just a healthy activity, something that it's always positive to spend your time doing. But just a disclaimer, if I ever don't post, it's probably technical difficulties, or I do have some vacations here and there still for coming up this summer. So I'll try to be posting every day though. Just if I don't post, I didn't die or something, most likely. 1 Kings chapter 10. This is a cool chapter. I already read it earlier today. The Queen of Sheba. And it just shows how magnificent Solomon, he had riches and knowledge that just you can't even compare to today. Imagine if there was somebody so famous today that kings and queens would pack up huge amounts of goods just to go out and seek them to see if the rumors were true. Hey, is this person really as good as they say they are? And anyways, this is just a really cool historical chapter, so I'm just going to read it. And I probably don't have that much to say, besides how cool everything is back then, how important everything was, and how for me it's always interesting to put my mind in, like, okay, there was a time where all of this stuff like actually was real and happening, and comparing to today, it's just wild how different things were. Okay. And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions. I guess the one thing that I will say is just how interesting this must have been at that time, where you had all these different pagan nations, and those people follow like Athena or whatever. I don't know the ways that it was, but imagine that you hear these tales of, there's these people and they claim to follow the one true God, the creator of everything. And you're surrounded by all these pagan nations that are like worshiping these obvious lowercase g gods. And yeah, imagine hearing that and hearing tales of the richness. And we'll just hear the description of this unparalleled amount of richness that Solomon had, and his wisdom was probably equally as impressive. Okay, no further stops. I'm just going to read the chapter. Starting at verse 2. And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bear spices, and very much gold, and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king, which he told her not. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he went up unto the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. And she said to the king, It was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not the words, until I came, and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceedeth the fame which I heard. How often in life these days are your expectations exceeded versus the opposite? It's not very often. Happy are thy men, happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and that hear thy wisdom. Especially the more extravagant the praise people have these days, the more you figure that underneath it all they're probably a snake. So it's extra impressive that people are saying that Solomon is the best thing since sliced bread times 20, and she goes and says that's not even half of it. Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighted in thee, to set thee on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore made he thee king to do judgment and justice. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and of spices very great store, and precious stones. There came no more such abundance of spices as these which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. And the navy also of Hiram, that brought gold from Ophir, brought in from Ophir great plenty of almug trees and precious stones. And the king made of the almug trees pillars for the house of the Lord, and for the king's house, harps also, and psalteries for singers. There came no such almug trees, nor were seen unto this day. And King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which Solomon gave her of his royal bounty. So she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Beside that he had of the merchantmen, and of the traffic of the spice merchants, and of all the kings of Arabia, and of the governors of the country. And King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went to one target. And he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 pound of gold went to one shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. So clearly just decorative shields. Gold's not going to be that amazing at, like, a battle shield. Interesting, though, the targets and the shields. It'd be interesting to consider the symbolism. Okay, verse 18. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory, and overlaid it with the best gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind, and there were stays on either side of the place of the seat. And 2 lions stood behind the stays, and 12 lions stood there on the one side, and the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. So I'm guessing there were 6 steps. Were there a lion on each side of the steps? Again, this is something that's helpful. I'll make sure the thumbnail is a picture of Solomon's throne. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. He was on another level, not even silverware, goldware. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with a navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. It's funny because this verse gets brought up a lot with my fake animal videos. They're like, oh, look, the Bible says that gorillas existed. Okay, apes, I'm sure just means little monkeys, the little spider monkey type monkeys. I don't think that apes here means orangutan or gorilla or any other fursuit. Okay. I just thought I'd point that out. I do not believe that KJV apes means great ape that was invented 200 years ago. I mean, go look up when they say gorillas were discovered. That wasn't in King James times. It seriously was made up like 200 years ago. Okay. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and garments and armor and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the cities for chariots, and with the king at Jerusalem. And the king made silver to be in Jerusalem as stones, and cedars made he to be as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance. So I think that's a very good general description, that Solomon's kingdom was so prosperous that there was silverware instead of stoneware. So I'm guessing that his kingdom was just so abundant that basically everybody had riches that many other kingdoms could only dream of having. Just 2 more verses. And Solomon had horses brought out of Egypt, and linen yarn. The king's merchants received the linen yarn at a price. The best. You still hear people today, the best Egyptian cotton. Not that I necessarily believe Egypt is where it was in the Bible. And a chariot came up and went out of Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And so for all the kings of the Hittites and for the kings of Syria did they bring them out by their means. I love little details like that, giving us the specific price of a horse. Not that I know how to use that data right now, but it's cool that it exists, and you could compare it to other prices mentioned in the Bible. Hope you enjoyed this video. God bless everyone.